Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Age of Extremes, 1914 to 1991, by Eric Hobsbawm, narrated by Hugh Kermode.
The Century. A Bird's Eye View. 12 people look at the 20th century. Isaiah Berlin, philosopher, Britain. I have lived through most of the 20th century without, I must add, suffering personal hardship. I remember it only as the most terrible century in Western history. Julio Cara Baroja, anthropologist, Spain. There's a patent contradiction between one's own life experience, childhood, youth and old age, passed quietly and without major adventures, and the facts of the 20th century, the terrible events which humanity has lived through. Primo Levi, writer, Italy. We who survived the camps are not true witnesses. This is an uncomfortable notion which I have gradually come to accept by reading what other survivors have written, including myself, when I reread my writings after a lapse of years. We, the survivors, are not only a tiny but also an anomalous minority. We are those who, through prevarication, skill or luck, never touched bottom. Those who have, and who have seen the face of the Gorgon, did not return, or returned wordless. René Dumont, agronomist, ecologist, France. I see it only as a century of massacres and wars. Rita Levi-Montalcini, Nobel laureate, science, Italy. In spite of everything, there have been revolutions for the better in this century, the rise of the Fourth Estate, and the emergence of women after centuries of repression. William Golding, Nobel laureate, writer, Britain. I can't help thinking that this has been the most violent century in human history. Ernst Gombrich, art historian, Britain. The chief characteristic of the 20th century is the terrible multiplication of the world's population. It is a catastrophe, a disaster. We don't know what to do about it. Yehudi Menuhin, musician, Britain. If I had to sum up the 20th century, I would say that it raised the greatest hopes ever conceived by humanity and destroyed all illusions and ideals. Severo Ochoa, Nobel laureate, science, Spain. The most fundamental thing is the progress of science, which has been truly extraordinary. This is what characterizes our century. Raymond Firth, anthropologist, Britain. Technologically, I single out the development of electronics among the most significant developments of the 20th century. In terms of ideas, the change from a relatively rational and scientific view of things to a non-rational and less scientific one. Leo Valiani, historian, Italy. Our century demonstrates that the victory of the ideals of justice and equality is always ephemeral, but also that if we manage to preserve liberty, we can always start all over again. There is no need to despair, even in the most desperate situations. Franco Venturi, historian, Italy. Historians can't answer this question. For me, the 20th century is only the ever-renewed effort to understand it. 1. On the 28th of June 1992, President Mitterrand of France made a sudden, unannounced and unexpected appearance in Sarajevo, already the centre of a Balkan war that was to cost many thousands of lives during the remainder of the year. His object was to remind world opinion of the seriousness of the Bosnian crisis. Indeed, the presence of a distinguished, elderly and visibly frail statesman under small arms and artillery fire was much remarked on and admired. However, one aspect of Monsieur Mitterrand's visit passed virtually without comment, even though it was plainly central to it: the date. Why had the President of France chosen to go to Sarajevo on that particular day? Because the 28th of June was the anniversary of the assassination in Sarajevo in 1914 of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, which led within a matter of weeks to the outbreak of the First World War. For any educated European of Mitterrand's age, the connection between date, place, and the reminder of a historic catastrophe precipitated by political error and miscalculation leaped to the eye. How better to dramatize the potential implications of the Bosnian crisis than by choosing so symbolic a date? But hardly anyone caught the allusion except a few professional historians and very senior citizens. The historical memory was no longer alive. The destruction of the past, or rather of the social mechanisms that link one's contemporary experience to that of earlier
Sample complete. Ready to continue?